Hello, welcome to Sexpertise. I'm your host and favorite sexpert, the Erica Rivera. Have you ever waited to feel desire before engaging in intimacy and nothing ever happened? If so, this episode might change how you understand your body completely. Today, we're talking about spontaneous versus responsive desire, why one is culturally favored and why the other is so often misunderstood. If you've ever felt broken because you don't want it first, I want you to hear this very clearly. Nothing is wrong with you. Let's talk about how desire actually works. Many people come into conversations about desire already believing something is wrong with them. They feel broken, behind, or incompatible because their desire doesn't show up the way they think it should. So that belief usually doesn't come from their body. It probably came from cultural messaging about how desire is supposed to work. This episode is about undoing that belief. Nothing about you needs fixing. Desire is one of the most misunderstood aspects of sexuality. It's often treated as a single experience instead of a spectrum of responses. When people don't recognize their own desire style, they assume absence instead of difference. And that assumption leads to shame, self doubt, and unnecessary pressure. Over time, pressure becomes the very thing that shuts desire down. So, understanding creates relief. So, tonight we're going to talk about two primary desire styles: spontaneous and responsive. We'll explore how they work, why one is culturally favored, and why the other is often misdiagnosed as low libido. We'll also look at how these differences play out in real relationships. This is not about labeling yourself permanently. It's about recognizing patterns so that you can stop fighting your body. You're not broken, you're patterned. Most cultural narratives center spontaneous desire as the norm. Movies and media show people wanting sex all of a sudden, intensely, and without any buildup. Desire appears out of nowhere and is treated as proof of attraction or chemistry. This portrayal becomes the default expectation. Anything that doesn't match it, it's always been seen as lacking. Because spontaneous desire is highly visible, it's often assumed to be universal. People are taught to wait until they feel it before engaging in intimacy. When that feeling doesn't arrive, they conclude something must be wrong. This creates a silent comparison between lived experience and cultural fantasy. The gap between the two often becomes shame. What these narratives leave out is context. They don't show stress, exhaustion, emotional safety, or nervous system regulation. They don't show how desire is influenced by life circumstances. As a result, many people internalize a model that was never designed to reflect reality. That model sets people up to misunderstand themselves, and misunderstanding leads to self blame. Spontaneous desire is a form of wanting that arises without external prompting. It often shows up as sexual thoughts, physical arousal, or a clear sense of, I want this now. For people who experience it, desire precedes action. The, the wanting comes first, the engagement then follows. This makes it easy to recognize. Excuse me. My throat has been getting a little dry lately. So, anyways, this type of desire tends to be culturally validated. It's obvious, it's expressive, and it aligns with popular narratives about sexuality. Because it's easy to identify, it's often treated as the standard. People who experience spontaneous desire may not even realize that there are other valid patterns. Their experience is reinforced as normal. However, spontaneous desire is only one way desire can function. It is not better, it is not healthier or more evolved than other forms. It's simply one pattern among many. Problems arise when this pattern is treated as the only legitimate one. That assumption leaves many people misreading their own bodies. So, let's talk about responsive desire. Responsive desire works differently. Instead of appearing out of nowhere, it emerges in response to stimulation. It could also arise because of connection or context. The body doesn't feel sexual first and then engage. It engages first and then desire unfolds. This is a crucial distinction. For people with responsive desire, neutrality often comes before wanting. They may not feel particularly sexual until touch, closeness, or emotional connection begins. Once engaged, arousal can grow naturally and authentically. But without engagement, desire may remain quiet. But this doesn't mean it's absent. Responsive desire is extremely common, yet rarely named, because it doesn't match cultural expectations. It's often misunderstood. People wait to feel desire before initiating, not realizing their desire requires initiation to emerge. So that misunderstanding creates confusion and frustration. Recognizing responsive desire can be deeply relieving. One of the most common mistakes people make is labeling responsive desire as low libido. When I say common mistake, I mean this is so common in the, I don't know how many years, 13 years I've been doing this, maybe more. So many people have come to me, clients, friends, to let me know about their low libido. And then once we have a discussion about it, we've come to figure out if it's not a communication issue, it's this. They just experience responsive desire, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. It is not low libido. If desire doesn't appear spontaneously, it's assumed to be lacking. And this mislabeling creates unnecessary alarm. People begin trying to fix something that isn't even broken. The problem isn't desire, it's expectation. When responsive desire is misunderstood, people often feel defective or disconnected from their sexuality. They may compare themselves to their partners, past versions of themselves, or cultural ideas. This comparison fuels shame and pressure. Pressure then interferes with the very process that allows responsive desire to emerge. So the cycle just reinforces itself. Responsive desire does not mean a lack of interest, attraction, or capacity for pleasure. It means desire operates on a different timeline. When that timeline is respected, desire can be rich and satisfying. But when it's ignored, desire feels inaccessible. Naming this difference changes everything. So, how most people are actually wired. All right, so researched and lived experience both suggest that responsive desire is it's a lot more common than people realize. Like I mentioned a few moments ago, many people do not walk around feeling spontaneous sexual wanting throughout the day. I mean, if you do, it's great, but instead, desire emerges once connection, relaxation, or stimulation begins. This means their bodies need context before arousal appears. When that context is missing, desire stays quiet. This pattern is normal. This is how we're actually wired. Because spontaneous desire is more visible, people often assume it's the default. Those with responsive desire don't see themselves reflected in cultural narratives. And like I said, like media, movies, and stuff like that, we don't see responsive desires in those narratives. As a result, they may believe that they're behind, that they're less sexual, or incompatible. And this belief is reinforced when partners or professionals misunderstand desire timing. Over time, misleading becomes internalized. Understanding that many people are wired this way can be profoundly validating. It shifts the question from what's wrong with me to how does my desire actually work? That shift reduces self judgment and it also opens the door to experimenting with different approaches to intimacy. Awareness alone can change outcomes. Desire differences often show up as timing mismatches in relationships. One partner may experience spontaneous desire and initiate from wanting. The other may need time, closeness, or stimulation before desire appears. This difference can create confusion. Each person assumes the other's experience is universal. When these mismatches aren't understood, they're often misinterpreted. And then this is when like issues happen and yeah. A lack of immediate interest can be read as rejection or disinterest. The partner with responsive desire may feel pressured or misunderstood, and the partner with spontaneous desire may feel unwanted. Neither interpretation reflects what's actually happening. Without language for these differences, tension builds. Partners may stop initiating, I've had a lot of people come to me about that. Or they begin keeping score. Desire becomes loaded with meaning it was never, ever meant to carry. Naming timing differences reduces personal blame. It allows couples to problem solve instead of personalize. Many people, many people with responsive desire wait to feel desire before engaging. This makes sense given cultural messaging. They've been taught that wanting should come first. But for responsive desire, this waiting often leads to nothing happening at all. The cue they're waiting for never arrives. Responsive desire usually needs engagement to activate. That engagement might be emotional connection, it might be touch, it might be flirtation, or just a shared presence. Without those inputs, the body stays neutral, and this neutrality is then mistaken for a lack of interest. The misunderstanding reinforces the belief that the desire is gone. This creates a stall where neither partner moves first. One is waiting to feel desire, the other is waiting for a signal. Does this sound familiar? Nothing happens, and both may feel discouraged. Understanding this pattern helps couples rethink initiation. Desire doesn't need to precede connection, it can follow it. Responsive desire is especially sensitive to pressure. When engagement is framed as an expectation or an obligation, the nervous system tightens. Instead of opening to stimulation, the body braces. Arousal becomes harder to access. Pressure interrupts the very process that allows desire to grow. Performance expectations can also interfere. This also happens quite often. When someone feels responsible for producing desire on cue, attention shifts inward. Monitoring replaces sensation. The body ends up moving out of experience into management. This shift suppresses arousal rather than encouraging it. So, removing pressure is not about lowering standards, it's about creating conditions where responsive desire can function. Safety, choice, and pacing all matter. When pressure is reduced, responsiveness often improves. Desire needs permission, not demand. For responsive desire, safety is a prerequisite for arousal. This includes emotional safety, relational safety, and nervous system regulation. Feeling chosen rather than demanded makes a significant difference. Safety allows the body to soften instead of brace. Arousal follows relaxation, not threat. Safety also involves predictability and trust, knowing that engagement won't automatically lead to obligation helps people stay present. When consent is ongoing and respected, curiosity becomes possible as well. The body is more willing to explore sensation. So desire grows from that openness. When safety is missing, desire often stays offline. This is not avoidance or disinterest, it's self-protection. Understanding that reframes desire difficulties as contextual and not personal. Safety always comes before wanting. Okay, sorry. I don't want to I'd rather take a sip of water than cough while I'm talking to you guys. All right, so desire as a process. So, yeah, a lot of people think desire is just like a switch. It's like an on and off switch, which it is not. Desire is often treated like a light switch that flips. And in reality, for many people, desire unfolds gradually. It moves from neutrality into curiosity, then into interest, and sometimes into arousal. This process oriented experience is especially common with responsive desire. When we expect an instant on signal, we miss the early stages entirely. Neutrality is not the same as disinterest. Many bodies begin intimacy in a neutral state and they warm up through connection. Touch, conversation, or emotional closeness can gently shift the nervous system. As safety and engagement increase, desire may begin to emerge. This unfolding is natural, not delayed. When desire is understood as a process instead of a switch, pressure decreases. People stop waiting for a dramatic internal cue. Instead, they may pay attention to small signals of openness. This reframing allows intimacy to begin without certainty. Desire doesn't need to arrive fully formed. It can grow as it goes. My favorite part, communication. Desire differences can be difficult to talk about without language. Many people fear that naming them will hurt their partner. Others worry that it'll confirm something is wrong. Silence often feels like the safer thing to do, but it actually creates more misunderstanding over time. So, communication is not the problem, how it's framed matters. So, naming desire styles without blame that's the key. That is the key. This means talking about patterns rather than deficiencies. Language like, this is how my body works. That in itself reduces defensiveness. The shifts, it'll shift the focus from fault to function. That's what I meant to say. So when you say something like that to avoid defensiveness, you focus on how you function rather than finding fault or blame in one another. So curiosity then becomes possible when comparison is completely removed. When partners understand each other's desired timing, they can collaborate instead of guessing. And I'm sure there are many people watching this now, perhaps in relationships where you constantly have to guess. And that's just frustrating. Misinterpretations will soften and pressure will decrease, and desire differences become something to work with and not around when you have that clear communication that builds around safety, and safety supports arousal. Initiation is also often misunderstood. It's usually misunderstood as explicitly sexual action. In reality, initiation can take many forms. It might look like inviting closeness, starting a conversation, or creating a shared moment. These gestures can open the door to connection without demanding an outcome. They allow desire to unfold naturally. For people with responsive desire, initiation doesn't always mean immediate readiness. It can simply mean openness to engagement. This reframing reduces pressure on both partners. Initiation becomes an invitation rather than a test. It allows space for desire to develop. When initiation is shared and flexible, responsibility doesn't fall on one person. Both partners participate in creating conditions for closeness. And that type of collaboration reduces resentment. Desire feels less performative and more of a mutual experience. Connection becomes a process instead of a transaction. So let's let go of this broken narrative. Many people come to this conversation carrying the belief that something is wrong with them. That belief often comes from misunderstanding desire timing. When bodies don't respond the way culture predicts, people assume failure. This narrative creates urgency and self doubt, and neither supports desire. Desire diversity is normal. Bodies respond differently based on wiring, history, and context. There is no single correct way to want. When we stop treating difference as dysfunction, pressure eases and relief will often follow quickly. So, letting go of the broken narrative doesn't mean ignoring challenges. Don't misunderstand me. It means approaching them without shame. All right. Curiosity replaces urgency. Understanding is replacing blame. Desire has more room to exist when it isn't under threat. All right. So, looking ahead. As we close this episode, the key takeaway is recognition. Understanding your desire style changes how you interpret your experience. It reduces self blame and unnecessary pressure. Awareness alone can shift how intimacy feels. Nothing else has to change yet. In the coming week, notice how desire shows up for you. Pay attention to timing rather than intensity. Observe what helps your body feel open or curious. And then let these observations become information, not instructions. Next week, we'll focus more deeply on the nervous system. So next week it is all about the nervous system. We're going to explore how stress, safety, and regulation directly impact desire. So this builds on everything we've discussed so far. And just as a final reminder, desire is not broken, it's responsive. And learning how it responds is the work. Before I let you go, quick update on the contact information. So, anytime an episode relates to you, your situation, or something that you've been through before, I absolutely love to hear about it. So, feel free to email me. My inbox is always open. And follow me on socials at the Erica Rivera. And last but not least, if you want to keep this show on the air and you've enjoyed this information or it has impacted you in some way, join patreon.com/the Erica Rivera. That is how we keep this show on air. So stay safe, stay curious, and I will see you next week.